Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and you're watching City Steading Brews. Today we're making a Rhodomel. What is a Rhodomel?
It is a rose-flavored mead. Now, mead is honey wine, which means fermented honey made into a wine-like beverage type of thing. When you add rose to it, using hips, petals, blossoms, whatever, it becomes a Rhodomel.
Now we did an extensive research on this Rhodomel, and this is actually take 2 of our Rhodomel, because our first Rhodomel we tried to use with rose hips, and we found out that rose hips really doesn't impart as much of the rose essence as we were looking for in this mead.
Now, someone told me how to do it, and I found that it was just far too much trouble for what I wanted to do. So we decided on rose petals. Very, very simple to use. We actually made a tea of ½ ounce of these dried rose petals and a good pinch. I mean, it was like maybe a tablespoon of our homemade chocolate mint tea. Now, you could use any mint tea from the store if you want to.
Now, prior to doing this, we actually tested our different ingredients and made just cups of tea and then divided them up equally to see what was working ratio-wise. And we found out that the mint tea, and this is actually
really strong
chocolate mint that we grow here and we dry ourselves. So this is homegrown tea.
But you can use like any mint tea.
But the mint tea was much stronger than the rose. So we knew, because this is a Rhodomel, it should be primarily rose, that we're going to use a far more greater, lots of other adjectives that means more of rose versus the mint.
But in our research, we found that rose, while it can be overpowering, also needs a little something extra. So that's where people were saying mint mixed with the rose might be a good combo. And actually, it really was. When we tasted the tea, it tasted nice. So, for this, we're also going to be using another adjunct, and that is Kaffir lime leaves. We've used these before, and I have here about ½ ounce, and they're fresh from our Kaffir lime tree. I just chopped off some of the fresher, greener bits and chopped them up. Just used a knife and chopped them up, because this is going to go into a fermenter.
Why are we using those?
They add some nutrient for the yeast, so something extra for the yeast to work with.
In the form of nitrogen.
Yep, and they add tannins, okay, because I'm afraid by using the tea, we're not getting any tannins into the brew, so I wanted to introduce the tannins this way.
I'm sure some of you are wondering, why didn't you just put the rose and the mint directly in the fermentation rather than make a tea? We decided we wanted to make a tea, so that way we could put an endpoint of how much we were extruding from the rose and the mint.
Right.
We have plans that we're going to test this after primary is done to see if perhaps it needs more rose added in secondary.
Right. We erred on the side of caution just a little bit. I put very little mint in here, but quite a bit of rose, but still not as much as some recipes were calling for. So I wanted to see, how strong is this? Because I know if I had put the rose petals in, first, they make a mess. So I'd have to use a bag, and I couldn't use the closed fermenter like I like to use. And second, they keep extracting. So we'd have to be very, very careful and check it almost daily. I don't like to do that with brews. The more you open it, the more chance for infection. So we wanted to use a tea, which means it's a stopped, solid amount. It's quantifiable. It won't get stronger over time, okay?
The third reason why we chose the lime to add to this is that we wanted a little bit of acid added to this for brightness.
They do have a little bit, not very much, but it does add just a touch. If you do not have access to Kaffir lime leaves, you can use like the stems off of strawberries. You can use rosemary. We were considering putting some rosemary in this. You can use even like a little bit of orange peel or lemon peel or lime peel. Not too much, just like one good swath of it. Throw it in the fermenter, and that should do the job too.
Everything has been sanitized in turbos as usual, and we did put our honey in there because it's a warm water bath. We don't want it to be too hot that it destroys the compounds of the honey itself.
Maybe 110 degrees.
But we warm it slightly so that it's easier to pour.
We're going to use about 3 pounds of honey, and this is Sweet Squeeze Florida Honey Wildflower. A lot of people have been asking lately, like, oh, have you used this kind of honey or that kind of honey? For a lot of the brews that we make, because they're so flavored, I don't like to use fancier honeys. Wildflower, clover, even orange blossom, they're all fairly neutral, so that way you're not spending a lot of extra money on nuances that are going to get lost because of the extra flavors we're adding anyway. So I'm just going to pour 3 pounds in here.
I'm not touching it, but I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it.
All right, so that's our 3 pounds of honey. Now, the way I do it is I poured it directly into the fermenter using the funnel, but I tared out the weight. So it says 3 pounds on here right now. That way I know I got 3 pounds of honey. There's a lot of honey stuck in that funnel, and that's all right because in just a second I'm going to be putting some hot. Now when I say hot liquid, it's the tea that's been sitting for probably 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so it's cooled off a bit. I can pretty much touch the Pyrex with my hand, so it's not going to hurt the honey. However, it might still be a little bit warm for pitching yeast, so we'll see when we get to that. What we want to do is I'm just going to give this a last stir, and we're going to put a strainer up here, and Derek is going to just kind of balance that for me. You might have to hold the funnel too. And I'm going to pour it in, and hopefully not burn anyone, like me or her. Alright, so now that we have that in there, what I want to do, see, you can see the line. I want to mix up that honey and that water so that we can break it all up, get it all started. Get a little pressure in there probably, yep. And what we're also doing is oxygenating it a bit and cooling it down because it still feels quite warm. Might have been just a little bit too warm, but okay, people boil their honey. I don't recommend doing that, but a little bit warm isn't really that bad. It's probably like 120, 130 degrees.
The only time temperature really comes into effect is when you pitch your yeast.
All right, so I have that mixed up pretty well, I think. Let's see. A little more. At this point, what I want to do though is add, it's just becoming a sticky mess everywhere. I do want to add our lime leaves. And there's no simple way to do this. You could put them in a bag, but then you have to use a different kind of fermenter. So I'm literally just going to shove them down the neck of the bottle. See you in about 3 hours. You laugh, but you're the one that has to clean this out.
Yeah, I know.
The things we do for you. All right, so I got the green stuff in there. That would be the lime leaves. I'm just going to mix them through too. Oh, we had one that got stuck on the side. He doesn't need to be in there. Poor guy. He had one job. Okay, so now that that's done, what I want to do is we're going to add water to this to raise it up to the right level. So, you follow in the pitcher of water. Thank you. Really simple, just pour water in. Now at this point I'm also going to add our yeast, but I want to make sure this is cool enough first. Our yeast of choice today, Lalvin 71B, and there's a reason why I'm using that, because it does produce more of a fruity ester and things like that, and we're going to use half a packet. It is roughly a 14 to 15% ABV yeast, so that's about what I expect this to come to. I'm hoping for like an 1100 or so starting gravity. And I am going to be using my rule, that is half a packet up to about 3 gallons, a full packet of yeast over 3 gallons, and if you're using exactly 3 gallons, it's completely up to you. Just eyeballing roughly half, then we fold this over, put a piece of tape on it, and put it in the fridge. That way it can last for a while. And I'm just going to rinse out that little bit of yeast with some more water. You want to be careful that you don't overfill. See, I want to leave a little bit of headspace just in case this starts to bubble up. Now, somebody might be saying, oh, you didn't hydrate the yeast. Yeah, you don't really have to. I've learned that recently. We've done it without hydrating and it's worked just fine. So, you know what? It's a step you just don't need to do. Keep it simple, right? So I'm going to mix this up. Make sure our honey's really integrated. It also adds a little bit of oxygen to the must, which is exactly what the yeast needs in the very beginning so that it can build a colony. Alright, so just going to take a quick hydrometer reading here. It's going to be a little bit complicated. I got some green stuff floating around in there, so hopefully I don't suck any of that up. I'll just go kind of deep. Starting gravity. I was hoping for something around like 1100, which it would be 1105 if I put exactly a gallon of water in there. Now, because we use less than a gallon, it's a little bit higher than that. It's actually, let's see here, 1.116. All right, so there you have it. The must smells a little bit like mint. Get a slight floral aroma. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now, set airlock and a bung. Done. But the video's not really over yet because we do want to explain to you what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next is this is going to go to someplace relatively cool and relatively dark, okay? You don't want it in direct sunlight. You don't want it like just open in a room with lights on. Light is not good for fermentation. And when I say relatively cool, we've heard some people lately saying that they're putting them in warm places. Putting your must into a warm place will actually make it ferment faster. But faster is not better in this case. Faster also will make some off flavors and nasty esters and things that make things not taste so good. Ideal temperature is about 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There'll be Celsius right here. If you had to, you can go up to close to 80, but I wouldn't go much past 80. At that point, you want to start figuring out a way to cool it down. If where you keep it is below 50, it might really slow down the yeast, possibly even stop it or stall it. So you want to try to keep it a little bit warmer than 50. So 50 to 80 is like your sweet spot range, with 65 to 70 being ideal. How long will this take? Well, that's hard to say. It's mead, it's honey, and it's a natural process. I'm probably going to give this 3 to 4 weeks before I even touch it. I might shake it up. And what I mean by shake it up is I'll hold the stopper. I'll just do this. I'll do that once a day for the first week or so. I'm not taking that airlock off because I don't want to introduce more oxygen. I'm literally just swirling up what's already there, keeping it going, and degassing it slightly so that some of the off-gassing can happen. After that, it'll just sit for a few more weeks. Then we'll have part 2 of this video. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.